Is day 61 of 100 Random Acts of Kindness. Today I met with Jen from Canadian Breast Cancer Network, and she and I met for a couple hours and caught up on kind of what's going on with my progression, as well as some initiatives that I just wanted to throw myself at because I have a lot of respect for CBCN. And so we chit-chatted quite a bit. Leah and I showed up there, and Leah said, I'm going to work on some other stuff while you and Jen chat. So when we got there, at this particular Starbucks, there were kind of sets. I think there were 4 sets of 2 leather chairs. And so everybody was kind of in one chair, and then the other one was empty. So Leah and I showing up, obviously we need 2. Even though Leah's going to go work on her own, I'll still need one for Jen. And so I walk with a cane. So it's obvious, to me anyway, it's obvious that the leather comfortable chairs are much more suited for me than the uncomfortable wooden chairs. So I grew up with a grandfather who didn't have a leg. He had his leg amputated and had a parking permit. And now I have an uncle who has his leg amputated. And I like to think, because I grew up with family members with parking permits and mobility aids, that I'm pretty aware of when somebody needs help, instead of just pretending like you don't see them, trying to get out of people's way, holding doors. Anything that just seems really natural, I have learned now that I walk with a cane, is not natural for whatever reason. I don't know if people are afraid that I don't know what somebody could be afraid of by helping me, but who knows? People are busy. I don't know what it is. I've flown by myself, which is tough to kind of pull a carry-on and walk with a cane. And it's amazing how many people just pretend like they don't see me or don't help. And then on the other side, it's amazing when I kind of get into trouble how quickly people show up and just say, oh my gosh, let me help you with that. Do you want me to walk a crazy length just to help you? Like, I don't mean to just talk about the negative, because I really have had incredible people. I mean, I'm doing a whole series devoted to it, so I'm not trying to make it sound like that, but it does kind of amaze me when people, anything, where I'm trying to cross the road and they speed up because they can't wait the 3 seconds for me to cross. I don't know, like that kind of stuff. Just like, what are you possibly in a rush for? Anyway, so we get there today, and I'm kind of standing there awkwardly, and I could have sat down, but then Leah didn't have a spot to sit in. Anyway, the woman who was sitting, so I would have been sitting here, and then the woman beside me was sitting there, and there was an empty spot beside her. So there's a person sitting, empty chair, person sitting, empty chair. So Leah and I couldn't really sit beside each other. So the person who was sitting in one of the 4 spots looked at us and said, oh, I can just move over. And it was nothing. It was just nothing for her. She said, oh, I can just move over. And I kind of, I don't know, I'm just not necessarily used to that. She, I guess, saw me with a cane, assumed, I'm making all these assumptions, I don't know, I didn't talk to her after, but assumed that I would be comfier in that chair, that I'd want to sit with my friend, and she hopped up and sat beside a stranger that she didn't know, just to let us sit beside each other in comfy chairs. And those simple acts, I think Lee and I were having quite a conversation about how can one little thing that I do really affect, like how can, if I repeat the same thing over and over, or if I have one little thing, like that woman, I have no doubt she moved over and didn't think about it again. But Leah said, like, I think she was listening to a podcast or something, and Leah said she had heard, we think like, well, how can something so little actually have an effect on things? And then you think of chaos theory and the butterfly effect. And the butterfly effect, easy for me to say, butterfly effect is about how when a butterfly flaps his wings or doesn't flap his wings, how it can affect crazy weather reactions. So maybe it causes a tornado because the flapping of the wings causes this rush of air, which causes this to do that, which causes this to do that. I know this is a brilliant explanation. Anyway, and then results in this crazy catastrophic, like I said, tornado or hurricane or whatever it is. And so when you think of how simple that was for her to just move chairs, that's it. That's all she did. Whereas for me, I'm thinking, okay, now I get to sit with my friend. I don't have the speed to watch like, oh, they're getting up. We got to run over there. I don't run anywhere anymore. So for her, it was so simple. For me, it had such an impact. And I'll remember it next week. Every time I go to the Starbucks, I'll remember it. And it's these little things that, you know, the sicker I get, the more I kind of have these moments of clarity where it's like, oh, if we really did just treat each other like good people and we were kind and took those extra 30 seconds to help each other, imagine what the world would be. And I'm not trying to be like kumbaya and, you know, all this stuff, but just these like little actions. And so anyway, we hugged Jen goodbye. I introduced Jen to Leah and we all hugged goodbye and we hop in the car. And so we went into one store, I think, from then. And then after then, my nausea is just kind of being a jerk. So I said to Leah, I have a few coupons. I have some price matching. I know that's not terribly comfortable for a lot of people. I think I had 4 products. And I said, do you mind going in? These 2 things are free. These 2 things bring it down to $1. You know, can you price match this and that, whatever. And like she has everything in her hand. And I said, if this is too much, and that's not like a condescending or patronizing thing to say, like, I get it. If I wasn't a price matcher, I'd be like, I'm not doing that for you. I'll mess it up. I don't understand what you're saying. And she said, nope, no problem. So I sat outside, not feeling 100%, but okay, while she went inside and got these things for me. And it's so simple for somebody. Like, I thanked her like 3 times and she's like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's nothing. Whereas for me, I'm thinking, I just would have gone home. I just wouldn't have done it because I couldn't have psyched myself up enough to get into a Walmart and go around and price match and have to ask questions, not throw up, which I almost did in another grocery store. And she just ran in and got it and ran out. Like it was nothing. It took her, I don't know, start to finish 10 minutes. And that's from the time she opened the door to close the door kind of thing. Like it was nothing. And I am just so grateful. And to me, that's such a random act of kindness because she could have easily said like, well, no, I don't really want to do your, she's not that type of person. I could have asked her to do anything. She would have done it. But it does seem like I'm asking for more and more help, which has always been uncomfortable for me. And I always feel like people are like, God, again? I got to help you again? And nobody who's ever said that to me, but it's very tough being young, looking young, and being so sick. It is very, very, very challenging for people to look at you going, why are you on a scooter? Maybe you should lose some weight. Then you could go do your grocery shopping. Why are you walking with a cane? You're too young. You must be faking. These aren't necessarily things that people have said, but I have definitely heard, well, look, Mom, like a man who was like in his 50s. Mom, you should just be on one of those scooters like that girl. She's doing it. Do you want to trade? For 1 second, do you want to trade? And so, like, there's all these different, every time I park in a parking permit spot, I'm just waiting for somebody to tell me where I should be parking. Again, mostly people are good, but you do hear things, whether people intend for you to hear them or not. And so I just think of like how easy people make my life when my life isn't always easy. And so for that girl to just get up and offer her spot like it was nothing, I swear there's no way that she is ever going to think about that again. And then for Leah to run in and think that, yeah, of course, I just ran in and got you a few things. And they're so helpful. So back to my point of things that don't cost any money, offering that help, especially when you're with the person. I find that when somebody texts me and says, how can you help? Well, I'm not going to say, can you do my groceries? But if you're physically with me and say, why don't I just, especially when you offer things, why don't I just whip up some, or I brought some, or can I make you lunch, or what do you need heated up? Can I sweep your floors? Any of that stuff. I'm not saying come over and do that for me. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying for anybody in your life who is sick or going through something, the concrete options and suggestions are so important and helpful, especially because we're not great at asking for help. So when somebody says, can I do this specific thing for you? It's much harder for me to say no than if somebody says, what can I do for you? It's way easier for me to say, oh, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. Whereas if somebody says, here, this is what I can offer you, it's harder for me to say, especially if it's something that I need, it's harder for me to say no. So to the random woman in Starbucks and to my best friend, Leah, I am grateful for both of you. Talk to you tomorrow.